Hello, this will probably be a video again. So, video, I know how to do them. First on my screen, I've got Amish Todd's comment yesterday, which I think represents a common error. It finishes off with China still holds the debt. And there's a bit of confusion here because we kind of know what China is. It's a country over there somewhere, a big country over there somewhere with lots of people in it. And when we say China holds the US debt, which weighs whatever it is, a couple of trillion or something, it's as though we imagine there's a big fat boy over there that's got a big bank account with lots of money in it. And that is not really quite true. It can be better understood as the people of China have worked their little socks off very hard and saved a lot of money that they've put in things that are new to them called banks, and their banks, as banks do around the world, have put that money, now in the form of digits, to the central bank. The central bank then gives it to the government, and the government gives it to their treasury, and their treasury gives it to the United States of America. That is completely untrue, but it's a much better way to understand Chinese debt, or the Chinese credit that they have with the United States. It's not as though China has $2 trillion to spend. China has $2 trillion to spend, but China also owes that $2 trillion to the people that have put the money into the banks in the first place. Now, actually, it's more like companies and things like that, but that's confusing. So it's wrong to think that China just is ahead of the game by 2 trillion in savings. It owes those 2 trillions of savings to the people of China. And that kind of pulls the air out of an awful lot of people's conversation on this, because that is the truth of the matter. It's not China's money. It's the people of China's money. Or you could think of it as it's money that is being invested on behalf of others. And all that 2 trillion is owed to other people in China. Yeah? So when you're thinking about who is stuffed when who is stuffed, like if this stupid thing about the Americans won't pay them, the Chinese government then, it's a run on the Chinese government, the central bank, banks in general, to find the $2 trillion to pay back the people that they owe that $2 trillion to. It's not that they're $2 trillion in profit ahead of the game, and that's their savings, and that's what's invested. That money is owed to other people. And imagine if the United States one day said, we are not paying. That absolutely stuffs the complete Chinese economy, because everyone will eventually realize that that is the truth of the matter, that their money has been given to the Americans. And the only way of getting it back would be for the Chinese central bank to print up lots of bits of paper to give to the Chinese people to pay them their money back. I read this in US News yesterday, which doesn't look to be a particularly good newspaper, but here it is, and I'll read it to you, although it's a video. I'll put the 2 or 3 pictures below. With the economy in the doldrums, the price of gasoline should be stable. Now again, this is parochial, it's American, it's USA Today. They think because their economy is not booming, that the world price for oil is severely affected by what they do. It is affected, but it's not severely affected. All right. With the economy in the doldrums, the price of gasoline should be stable. Demand is down, and that should be reflected in the price at the pump. See, some of these people just aren't connected into the world. They have got no idea that there's a world out there at all. Instead, it's creeping up faster, rising faster than most Americans can keep pace with, taxing family budgets that are already stretched paper thin. Who does President Barack Obama blame for this? Yeah, you can see this is going to be a political hatchet job. Not speculators, not international tensions in the world's oil-producing regions, tensions created by his administration's feckless foreign policy. He doesn't even blame the failures of his own administration's energy policy. What energy policy? Of which there are many. No, Obama blames the Republicans and the oil companies. The president's preferred course of action is to spread the blame around among the usual suspects while promoting his now shop-worn agenda to increase the US government's investment in so-called clean energy companies. Those investments, it bears repeating, have already cost the taxpayer billions with nothing to show for it except a resurgence of crony capitalism. Now, obviously that's not representative of anything. Well, of something it probably is. The USA Today, and that was Peter Roth, who his writing has also appeared on Fox News. So we can roughly pigeonhole that. But this is sad stuff, because I think we're kind of deciding that this oil energy thing is very serious shit. And this, just using it as a great big club to go around bludgeoning people because you want some sort of human being to be elected to be something with gold stars and a big hat, not the other person, is really missing the point. Something chronic. Okay. Yeah, I'll leave that there. Now, the next one, Financial Times, Martin Wolf. Now, Martin Wolf is, because I've quoted him so many times, we've come across him, the chief financial analyst for the Financial Times. He's just about one of their, he's their big hitters in the writing department. Okay. This article called Prepare for a Golden Age of Gas, Prepare for a Golden Age of Gas, in my opinion, should not be written by Martin Wolf. What in the name of all things pink is Martin Wolf, the chief economic correspondent, writing an article in the Financial Times called Prepare for a Golden Age of Gas? He shouldn't be doing it. The Financial Times energy correspondent should be writing it. And this is a terrible problem. I know I said a couple of things about it a week or so ago, but we're not being served very well by the mainstream media. And I've got to ask, why not? Why does the Financial Times not have an energy correspondent? Martin Wolf could then go to the energy correspondent, write an article about the economy and plug in information about what the energy correspondent tells him is happening in the energy space, but he should not be writing it on his own. And I think that's a serious thing. He's struggling to write enough decent articles as it is. That's about all I want to say in this video. No, I'll finish with a bit on credibility. Credibility that I started in yesterday's video. On a slightly different angle. We've got what I talked about yesterday, the macro thing about credibility. And the West has still got it where the East has not yet earned it. Credibility is a sort of thing you get over generations. Now, on a slightly smaller scale of this credibility and generations in the West, I believe what can happen. The United Kingdom is an excellent example. America gets a bit confused, I would think, if I'm explaining it through the United States. Yeah, United Kingdom would be a bit United States would be a bit confusing. So let's stick to the United Kingdom. They got through the First World War. They got through the Second World War. They've got up to the 70s, let's say. And they get credibility for that. If you can be a country that's involved in this, you know, a small country involved in this huge world war, right at the centre of the one war, and then go into the second war, and then have a country that is effectively just about with problems but keeping going, you get real credibility for that. And if credibility shows up anywhere, it shows up in the value on a free-floating exchange for your currency, among other things. And that's important. You earn it over generations. There was a bit of defaulting on war loans, but they're not cut and dried, and they're a bit iffy, but they do exist. And the United Kingdom basically has never, except for a couple of hiccups, defaulted on its government debt. Credibility you get for the country, people will lend to you, and your currency will remain quite strong. If your currency remains quite strong, I was talking to Wincutter this week in comments about this, with a strong currency, you can go over to a country that has not got this generations of credibility and buy stuff from them, really nice stuff that they have made, that their people have spent hours and hours and hours either producing, making, building, or fishing for, farming, or whatever it might be. You can use the credibility of your country's currency, go over there and buy all sorts of stuff. Hundreds of hours of work sometimes for what would be 1 hour of work for one of your countrymen. Seemingly unfair, but that's what you have to do. You have to have generations of credibility before your currency can go and do that sort of thing. Whether it's all a complete con or not, I have got no idea. But that seems to be the way it works. Because you can say, well, why should these Eastern people be paid where it works out, and the shorthand for it is, why are they paid so little when we are paid so much? It's more that our currency is so powerful and theirs is so piss weak. And why is that? It's this credibility thing. And on that credibility thing in the United Kingdom, you get up to the 70s, and the country, it had to go to the IMF for a bailout because it's got its economy in such a shocking shape. But I believe that money's probably been paid back anyway. I've not heard any more about it anyway. But you get to a time, I believe, where, and this is all Western countries, where the economy seems, because your people are being, in the shorthand, paid such a lot of money, you lose a lot of your manufacturing power out to the Eastern people with less credibility currencies, and your jobs go, and the whole economy, which used to be based on you manufacturing things, goes into a bit of a clunk, 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 clunk. And it needs a new raison d'etre, it needs a new wang to get it going. The new wang to get it going is Reaganism or Thatcherism, where credibility can be used again, that generations of the people have done the honourable thing about going to work, working all their lives, getting a pension, being good, and dying quite quickly, and everything's really worked out quite spiffingly well. So what can happen then is that a new generation comes along, and huge amounts of debt can be lumped on them, because for generations their fathers and their fathers' fathers and their fathers' fathers, mothers' fathers, I know, pretend females are in there if you're that way inclined, have always paid their debts back. So this new generation can be loaded up with debts on the projection that UK people always pay their debts back. And this can go on for a generation or two, surprisingly, and they will pay their debts back. Should I get into the because or go on to another one? No, I'll go on to the other aspect of Reagan Thatcherism, where you can also sell off lots of stuff into the private sector, and the private sector rationalizes things, makes things more efficient, and it is generally, in what's called a modern world, more efficient. And you get a bit of credibility for this as well, because it's not the old stuffy wood panelled way of doing things. It's the new plastic computerized way of doing things, and you do get a lot of productivity bonus from this, and you get more credibility from this, that maybe you have found a new way of doing things and it will work, and this generation will be able to pay back their debts. Okay, yeah, there was a third one I was going to put in, but that would make things too long. So I think this is where we are in the West, that the credibility of our ancestors has given us, or given this generation, the younger generation than I am, the ability to take on huge quantities of debt because their ancestors have always paid it back. Now, the big question mark is this rational? Is this correct? Is it right that the new generation can take on all this new debt with these new plastic computer screen jobs, and will they be able to pay it back? That is the bet that Reaganism, Thatcherism has made, that they will be able to. And that's where we are now. At the moment, I'm saying that this tidal wave came from the United States, who overdid it with subprime, and it's about gone past now, but we are severely rattled by it. And as I said yesterday, it's okay, it's gone past, and still 90% of this generation with the debts are paying them back miraculously. But this tsunami or hurricane or storm is going to the east. I said yesterday I think they're going to struggle with it. But I think when it hits the east, it's just going to circle round again. And it's going to, the wave is going to go into the United States and Europe again. And I think this thing's just going to keep circling round. And the question is each time it circles round, it's going to do more and more damage. And less people are going to be able to pay their debts back. And always hanging around in the background is this energy problem of energy seems to be getting more and more expensive. But for the moment, we cannot be sure whether it really is peak oil or not, because I don't think it's total conspiracy theory to imagine that people can, and it is possible that it is the price is being manipulated by money people to keep some game going. But that's got to be balanced by the fact that since 2005 the supply just does not seem to be coming out of the ground anymore on a exponential curve or direction. It just doesn't seem to be happening that way anymore, and that really needs explaining, because capitalism doesn't work that way. When the price rises, it should drag out more product, but it hasn't. So the capitalists that say the price is rising for this reason, that reason, whatever the reason, always seem to avoid explaining the normal capitalist reason. Look, the price is going up, it should drag more product to the marketplace, but it hasn't. Why not? And we will not be helped by the Financial Times putting forward their chief financial analyst to explain things like gas supply or oil supply. What we need are experts there that can dedicate their time and resources to finding the answers to these questions. We can do the best we can, but we're not going to be listened to, and the chances of us getting real information that we can base real decisions on are very dodgy. They need to do it for us, not just use it as a political tool to bash politicians with. Anyway, that's the end of my bit of a ramble, wasn't it? Anyway, have a good weekend. Bye.